something really good, a hot topic in the news this week. He's been charged with a crime. This is a show where I try to educate real stories.
Thank you for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King, where we try to educate you about the criminal justice system through stories. I've been doing this a long time now. I'm proud to co-host this show with Damion Walker. Damion, thank you for being able to come tonight to help me tell these stories. Damion, as you know, is a very productive member of our society, but did go to prison as a juvenile and did 17 years. And I'm very proud of him because he has walked a straight line since he's been out. I hope I can continue to encourage him and all the support, but he did all the right things. His story is on the air if you ever want to see it on YouTube, where he's told his story and he's always telling it. So we also have in the studio tonight Mr. Reginald Reggie Smith. We're excited to have you here. Thank you for volunteering your time.
Yes,
I know you're off work right now, but you've come in to tell us your story. So
thanks for having me.
One of the things Reggie is the executive director of a program called Credible Messengers United. That's a great title. But we're going to start first with, we always want to talk about people's backgrounds, how you got involved with your own criminal behavior, and how it led you to prison. And of course, it's always a story of redemption, how we got there. And we want to encourage people not to go there, try to be as productive as you can, but we do want to tell you stories of hardship and redemption. So tell us about your story, please.
So yeah, thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you.
So I grew up, I'm 58 years old, so I grew up in the 60s and 70s and early 80s in the third ward of Houston. I grew up in a single parent house. It was my mother and my grandmother, which is, you know, pretty much the regular situation for most folks back in them days, and pretty much today too, so sadly. But my mother, she was a school teacher, and so of course I got home in the evenings. I was a latchkey kid, and instead of going home in the evenings, I just hang out, you know, on Live Oak or Southmore or somewhere like that. And so I think I didn't have a father, and I think what it was, a lot of it was that I was looking for something that I wasn't getting at home, you know. And so I found it through friends or people I thought was my friends. And I started developing certain behaviors that I picked up in the streets. And one thing led to another, and okay, you get in trouble for shoplifting. That's number one thing. So, but then you go from shoplifting to, you know, breaking in cars. And so I guess it was kind of the norm amongst my peer group at that time. You know, we did all kinds of little stuff, but it never really was like I wanted to be a criminal or something like that. I was just having fun. But as the years went on and I started piling up, you know, one arrest after the other, I finally ended up in juvenile. Back then it was on West Gray. And I was at CLC, Contemporary Learning Center, which was the alternative school back in the 70s. And the person that was over security came and, you know, told me I needed to go to office for a routine search, and he found like an ounce of marijuana on me. Okay, well, this was like 19.
Were you selling it?
Huh? Well, no, I wasn't really selling it, but I had it in my possession, right? But the point of it is that back in 1978, having an ounce of weed was like a major thing. You know,
How old were you, do you think?
16, 15, 16, something like that. And I had been in a lot of little stuff, you know, shoplifting, you know, breaking in cars. So this time they wanted to take me out of the house. And so they put me in a place called Hope Center. And I met other people that were, pretty much coming from same kind of backgrounds as I came from, and we just got in more trouble together. And so I ended up at Hope Center, going from Hope Center to 301 downtown to the adult jails. And after that first experience, it kind of slowed me down because, okay, now I'm not going to juvenile. I'm in the adult prison. And I had a really good lawyer at that time. Her name was Sybil Carr. See, and you got a good lawyer when you're 58 years old and you can remember the lawyer name from when you were 16. But she asked me what I wanted to be. And I was like, I want to be a lawyer. And she said, okay. And what happened was she actually got me off on the case. And when she brought me into her office, she explained to me the gravity of the situation, also my responsibility to my other siblings, because I had a younger sister, and she was like, you're not setting a good example. She says, but you can still be a lawyer. And so I took that with a grain of salt. Thank you very much. I managed to get out of that situation, and I just went on to pretty much the same behavior. But luckily, I did well enough in school. Actually, I got a GED. I ended up going to school in New Orleans. So I went to school.
Now, how'd you end up in New Orleans?
Well, my relatives, as you probably can tell, my family actually comes from New Orleans.
Okay.
And
your mama sent you to New Orleans?
Yes, out of the frying pan into the fire.
But did you get your GED in Houston?
That's
or New
at
Orleans?
Houston Community College.
Okay.
I got a GED there. Was able to take an SAT. I was just wanting to get into college. But clearly the SAT score was impressive enough. They say, yeah, you can come to Xavier, you can come to school here, and we're going to give you a scholarship.
What?
Yeah, but I was at the point in my life where I just, I think one time it was Benjamin Mays came to our school, and Benjamin Mays was giving a speech, and he said, when an opportunity comes around, you need to seize it because it might not come around again.
And who was Benjamin Mays?
Benjamin Mays was a mentor to Martin Luther King.
Yeah, I remember the name. I just didn't remember. Okay.
And I didn't know who he was at the time. Some old dude, telling me what I need to do. But when he was up there talking, I missed his whole speech. But that one thing I remembered. And so that led me to say, okay, at that time in my life, I didn't understand that these were opportunities that might not come around again. Going to college might not come around again. I, promptly got kicked out of Xavier and sent back home. And so anyway, I got a job, and it wasn't until I was in maybe 25 or 26 that I actually picked up another adult case.
Okay.
And but then by that point,
What was it? What case was that?
oh, it was probably a car theft. Got several car theft cases back in those days. Stealing cars
What year is this?
This would have been 83, 84, 85, and so yeah, it was the beginning of the crack epidemic. But car theft was, the thing back then.
Part of it.
Yeah, well, a big part of it. So anyway, I ended up going to adult prison, but strangely enough, I didn't go to prison in Texas. I went to prison in Louisiana.
Did you get caught with the crime in Louisiana?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I got caught attempted car theft or something like that, and took the people on a long extended chase all around Jackson Square, ran through the K&B building.
Oh,
and so they were like, okay. But they were like, you're an unusual kind of criminal here because you go to a university here, but you're getting in this trouble. So what they did was they sent me back to Houston on probation. And that's pretty much why I stayed out of trouble for those 4 or 5 years, because I was on probation. But unfortunately, I didn't make it through that probation. So at 24, 25, when I violated that probation in Texas by getting another stolen car charge, as soon as I got out of TDC, that little 2 years they gave me in TDC, Louisiana came and picked me up and drove me all the way back down to New Orleans, and they promptly sent me to Angola. So I was like, okay.
I want to ask this question too.
Mm-hmm.
So stealing the cars. Why were you stealing cars? Was it chop shop? Or?
Yeah, it was the post. The post. That's what I did. That was my hustle.
Okay.
Was stealing cars. You know, it didn't go nowhere without a screwdriver. All of y'all that stole cars,
say,
understand?
Yeah, I know.
So you
American made.
You stole cars and took them to the chop shop?
Yeah, to the post. They called it the trading post. Okay. And we would already break the stuff down, the seeds, everything down, take it to the post, and they would almost give us orders. Like, we need 10 pairs of tops. We need so many tops. Yeah. Yeah, and
Why you call it the post?
That's what they called it, the trading post. So we just called it the post.
So, but it might be someone's mechanic shop?
No. It was actually like, kind of like I guess you would say the closest thing I could think is a pawn shop.
Okay.
But for heavy equipment, like they'll have riding lawnmowers out there, and they'll have, all kinds of welding machines. And so they bought industrial stuff.
Okay.
Stolen.
I mean, some of it probably wasn't stolen, some of it probably was. I don't know. I didn't ask all of those questions.
Okay.
And I certainly wasn't trying to buy anything out the establishment. I came just to sell, So anyway, yeah, I had, kind of a lucrative business going on, because in Louisiana, this car theft wasn't as prominent as it was in Houston. Mm-hmm. And so we had got car theft down to a science in Houston. And so, of course, we had to go other places and see what we could come up with. And so New Orleans was, a place where we were stealing cars. And so anyway, when they did send me to prison, I was like wondering, why y'all send me to Angola? I didn't do nothing but steal a car. So anyway, I did end up going there.
For how long?
Oh, I stayed there for about 10 months. I had a 9-year sentence. They sent me there for about 10 months, and then they opened up a new prison in Allen, Louisiana, called Allen Correctional Center, and thankfully I got put on the bus and went to Allen. And at Allen, I started getting involved in educational programs. Like I took my first computer course at Allen Correctional.
How long did you stay there?
Oh, I stayed there for a couple of years. And then they sent me to, in Louisiana, they'll send you to like a army base or something like that. They have one in Alexandria, Leesville, called Camp Polk. So that was the last place I was at in Louisiana, was Camp Polk. I stayed there for about a year and then got released, and I came back to Houston. Came back to Houston, got some jobs, but I started having the problem that most folks have when they got criminal records.
About how old are you now?
Oh, this point here, I got to be 26, 27, something. I think I spent 3 years down there on that 8-year sentence. And so, yeah, I came back and I couldn't really get a good job because I really didn't have any job history, number one.
Right.
And number two, I had a criminal history. So the only history I did have was bad, And so, but, fortunately, I would get some little jobs, and I ended up going right back to crime simply because I couldn't really get a job that I felt like, this is the kind of job I want, So I could get jobs, but I didn't want to do that kind of work.
You didn't want to learn how to be a mechanic?
No, I tried
or
plumbing.
A body shop guy, something like that, since you like cars?
No, I didn't. I wasn't really big on cars, but I like to hustle. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, you like to hustle.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was just a hustle, and as time went on, then drugs became a hustle because the car stealing played out. And so then, we went to the next hustle, and the next hustle just happened to be drugs. And so, hey, the thing about those drugs, you could sell them, but don't use them, And then once you start getting on them and you start making mistakes and you start doing stuff, and next thing you know, you end up in federal prison. So, yeah, that ended up happening to me.
Now, how did you end up in federal prison?
Oh, well, that's a long story, but I guess what I could say.
Time.
Okay. Well, okay, so we have like a whole group of people that's kind of like a crew. And so one person on our crew got arrested. And you're a lawyer, you know about conspiracies. And so when he got arrested in Oklahoma, he told on one person, and they got arrested, and he told on one person, and he got arrested. And so I was way down the food chain, because the only reason that I was involved at all is because these folks have been knowing me for years. So that's how I got into it. And I had this clean-cut look, so I could get on the interstate and go from Houston to New Orleans and not get pulled over. And if I did get pulled over, I just, yes, sir, no, sir, and, hey, this kid not doing nothing. And so that was my claim to fame. So I ended up having to go on the run, And in order for me to do that, I had to use like a alias name that I had gotten through getting some paperwork or something like. So now I got identity theft. I got a fraud chase. So I got all these cases. And I'm like, everybody else in prison for these drug charges. It's basically the cover-up was worse than the crime because I'm trying to run and I'm breaking all of these laws trying to run, and that's basically how they caught me. You know, so running. Okay. You know, and using somebody else's Social Security to work and stuff. And so, you know, time comes around for taxes to be done. And this guy's like, I don't know what all of these, what all this is, these W-4s or whatever 2s are. You know, I don't know. I live in Houston. I don't live in San Antonio. Yeah. And so, you know, one day I was going home and the mailman was there and said, is your name, Michael McGuire? And I'm like, yes. He says, I got something for you over here. And as he was opening up the back of the truck, I thought to myself, I sure hope some police don't jump out of there. Yeah. Man, he got that thing up. I seen them black boots out like, went to go turn. There's cars coming all different directions. You know, Treasury Department. I didn't even know the Postal Service had a jail or a police force. Yeah. But that's who arrested me. The Postal Service arrested me.
The US Postal
and they took me to the main post office in San Antonio where they had a jail cell, put me in it, in the Treasury Department and everything. They filed their case with the Western District and they come, the marshals come pick you up and there you go. Yeah. Your odyssey begins because just like any other charge, you can get on it and you can go to prison and do time on it, but you got to live that paper down. Yeah. And man, I went back to the Fed twice just on violations. So
how much time did they give you?
Ooh, I think they gave me.
The first time on the Fed?
On the first, well, I only got one case on the Fed, the 32 months, but it was like not being able to live down. At first they had me on 3 years probation because they don't do parole, they do probation. Didn't live that down. The next time they put me like on 1 year and I still got busted on.
What was the violation though?
It'd just be like maybe a dope case or something like that, getting caught with possession or, something like that.
In your system or actually catch
you
with
they
the
catch me
dope?
It wasn't my system. It catch me with the drugs, yeah. And so, they promptly, actually the second time I got sent back, I think it was just for absconding. I just said, I'm through with y'all. That's the attitude that I had.
You're going back to jail.
They had to catch me first.
That's the kind of attitude you had?
Well, that is. They'd have to catch up. Whenever they catch up with me, then they can get that change from me. You know what I'm saying? Well, right now, I'm going this way. Yeah, that
now,
was my
dope telling you to do that? I mean, why didn't you want to just go on?
No,
32 months is a lot of time, but it's not that much time in the big scheme of things. Because people were getting big federal sentences back then.
Oh, yeah. Like no, that was a little
18 years and 20 years.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering why, when you were there and you saw people with those big sentences on conspiracy, you didn't want to say, let me just do my 32 months and get this over with.
Well, you know what? If going to jail would have been enough to impact me, to keep me from going back to jail, Angola would have been enough. Okay. Because I learned everything I know about surviving in prison from being on that river for 10 months.
Angola was rough?
Yeah, well, yeah. Just while going into numerous war stories, I'm a bright-skinned dude with curly hair and glasses. So you got your own dad on
that. You got to.
And you have to learn how to survive. You can't be friendly to folks. I mean, I still kind of suffer from some of that today because, folks kind of say that I can be kind of rough around the edges and stuff. But it's you just get kind of like, that's how you get over time because you have to protect yourself.
Survive, yeah.
You got to survive. You got to protect yourself.
You got to
everybody trying.
It's not like you can't. You got to send a message every single day.
You
every single time.
Reinforce that.
So 10 months of that straight.
Right.
That affected the next 30 years of your life. For 10 months will affect the next 30 years of your life. In a place like that.
Yeah, it was really traumatic. And it was like, to me, like the first time we went out the back gate to go work in the field, I was like, I see how slaves must have felt. Because it looked just like we was back in the 1890s. Yeah. And I was like, then I started having
1890s we were free, so go back a little further.
Okay, well, the 1860s.
1860s. Okay, so 1860s.
My bad. I'm a social worker, not a historian, but your point is well taken.
Juneteenth is coming up, and that's 1865.
Yeah, we want to be precise about that.
I just want to. I know you were just throwing a number out, but I
was. I thought I was in the ball field.
Since this is an educational program,
we don't want to give out bogus information. That's for sure. But yeah. At that point.
So Angola was rough. Just give me a little peep of Angola.
I mean, it's like stuff like if you're working out in the field and you're digging your cut and then somebody comes up there and just want to start helping you with the cut. Now, if you're a friendly guy, you're like, oh, thanks so much for helping me with that cut.
And the cut is?
The cut is the road that you're working on, whatever road. We were digging ditches. Ditches. So I'm on one side of a ditch, the other guy's on the other side of this, and we coming down with spades like this, and we all in a long line so we can dig a very long ditch. But you'll have somebody finish their cut and want to run back here and help you with your cut. But they not doing that because they like you or nothing like that. They don't like you. They like you, but they don't, you know what I'm saying?
But why are they doing it?
Because
they like you.
They like you.
Like to be their boyfriend?
Yes, yes,
Oh.
yes. And so in order for you to, not be seen as weak or friendly.
Well, you can't beat him up with the spade, because then you're going to catch a real case.
Well, no, you don't have to beat him up with the spade, but you definitely need to let him know. You got to bark at him. Say, man, get out of my cut. You got to bark at him.
Okay.
You got to let him know that I'm not going for that. And as time, years and years of barking at people like that, once you come back out here into the real world and you run into some stupidity like your BS monitor is like this small. You can't take a lot of nonsense. You say, get out my face with that. Because people come to you with mess all the time trying to run game on you.
So you kept your bark going.
Yes, I guess that's the only way I could put it, the bark. I mean, I'm sorry. That's you asked question, I'm answering it. You know what I'm saying? And yes, that's just how, this is not the Orange is the New Black or nothing like that. This is real prison. And so, yeah, you can't be friendly. You have to let folks know that your yes is yes and your no is no. You got to have boundaries, all of those things. And so if you want to survive and keep your commissary and everything else, you better be on a daily basis, be on your guard for people shooting at you one way or the other, because
good ways and bad ways.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
So you go to so how was federal prison compared to state prison, Angola and Texas and Angola? Was there a big difference to you?
Federal prison, I mean, I hate to say it like this, but it's way better than the state prison.
It's more humane.
Yeah, you got more educational options. I mean, for me, you got this incredible law library. You in there with lawyers that then got busted for something, so now you can really learn the law. And also you have like libraries that have the New York Times, the LA Times, so you can go in there and read newspapers from all over the country. So for me, the library and the law library became like safe havens for me. That's where I would go. When everybody was out there on the wreck, stabbing each other and all of that stuff, I'm going to be in the law library or the library. You can always find me. Where's Smith at? Man, Smith in the library. He ride that library. So.
Well, plus your mother was an educator, so you were raised reading, right?
Yeah,
Reading, writing, arithmetic.
I mean, I realized later in life that I've always had the ability to excel academically.
Right.
I just never had the proper motivation. What motivated me to go back to school is when I got into my 40s and I was in prison the last time, I had a little young person. I had already started like doing mentoring and stuff in prison. So by this time, I've been in and out of prison for over 15 years. So it's like,
what was the longest time you stayed in prison?
The last sentence was 6 years and 8 months.
And where was that?
That was split between TDC, and as soon as I got out of TDC, they sent me back to Beaumont to finish my federal sentence.
So what's the amount of time that you did total? What's your total amount of years?
6 years and 8 months on that sentence.
I'm talking about all together?
Oh, I've done 15 years easily. Yeah, just in all those different sentences all together.
And it's all for stealing and identity theft and any for dope?
Drug cases, yeah.
What about robbery, murder?
I probably got a robbery in there somewhere. Probably was a theft that got turned into a robbery because, hey, if you go steal something and then somebody tries to stop you and you just bump into them, it's a robbery.
Right.
Thank you, Miss Lord. So we learn all of this.
Can turn into a robbery.
Yeah, we learn all this. So that's why you get a certain age, if you're still out there hustling, you don't even do those kind of crimes no more because you understand that can turn, you can't control that. And it can turn into anything. So if you want to put yourself out there like that, you can, but, so you try to do stuff that won't put you in, out there like that as much. So you learn different stuff to do.
So the last time you got out of prison was getting out of federal prison in Beaumont. And how old were you?
I was about 46, 47. I was 47, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you went to prison your whole life?
Your whole adult life, baby.
Do you have children?
No. I actually do have one daughter, but I never met her because I was locked up, so. And those are things that you learn to regret.
You do know that's your daughter?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah.
She probably looks just like you. That's the way it has.
She probably does. But you learn over time. You see, these are the things those opportunities that came around that you didn't seize. You see, so things that you learn in your youth, I tell the kids I work with, I know what I'm saying to you is just not, you're not getting it. But I guarantee you, if you live 20 more years, that some of the things that I say to you is going to resonate. It's going to come back to you just like me. My grandmother used to always tell me, if not now, when? When are you going to change? If not now, when? If it is to be, it begins with me. As a matter of fact, I had stole out of somebody's car a keychain that said, if it is with me, if it is to be, it begins with me. So I was taking my grandmother to church one Sunday, and she seen the keychain, and she read it. She says, it is to be, it begins with me. She said, give me that keychain. You don't know what that. I'll give it back to you when I think you know what that means. Now, I'll never get it back from her. But the last time I was in jail, there was a young guy, I was in TDC at this time, and we go out and walk on the yard every day. So I had a guy right next to me, an older gentleman, and he was just the grouchiest man, and he had a walker, and he'd make all kind of disgusting noises. We called him old school. Man, old school over there, got everything, wind blowing and everything over there. So the youngster came to my bunk one morning on the end of my bed. Hey, what's up? Old school, let's go. I'm tying my shoe. He said, old school, I'm thinking he talking to the guy next to me. Right. What's up, man? You ain't talking to me today? Old school, let's go. At that very moment, the guy in the pod across from me, he started, the old school guy, sneezing and making. Yeah. I looked over there, and I looked at that youth, and I said to myself, I said, if I don't do something, I'm going to end up being that dude right there. Yeah. It wasn't no program. It wasn't no religion. It wasn't none of that. It was my grandmother coming back to me saying, if not now, when?
Right.
And so at that moment, I was like, you know what? I ain't coming back to jail no more. So
you had an epiphany. That's what they call it.
Yes, that's what they call it. Yes.
They call it an epiphany.
Yes, it was an epiphany.
But it was your reality, though.
Yeah.
If something hits you, the reason why they say an epiphany is like a light bulb goes off. It's like all the time you've heard this, you hear it, you know it, it doesn't resonate, but at some point in life, all of us, whatever situation we're grappling with, it hits you.
Right. But interestingly enough, my grandmother told me that when I was a kid. It struck me when I was in prison. And we make plans and God laughs. Right. Because when I got out, I just said, I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna go back to school. I knew I was gonna go back to school, but I thought I was gonna become a chemical dependency counselor. Because I realized in there that a lot of my problems was like around drugs and just hanging around the wrong people in the wrong places. So I didn't go back to Houston when I got out.
Did you feel you were chemically dependent?
Oh yeah, I know I was. Okay. I'm always smoking something.
What was your drug of
Well, the drugs that really made my life have severe consequences was cocaine. Okay. But I smoked weed since I was 13 and probably drank beer since I was 13. So, but what really took me out of my element and out the game was that cocaine. And so I said, you know what, I'm gonna address that. I started going to the AA meetings in there and
while in prison.
And when I got out, when I was in the federal prison, you got access to computers. You can actually send emails out. They don't get instantly answered and come right back in because they have to be screened when the message is out screened, message is in screened. But anyway, I wrote to San Antonio Community College because that's where I was going to be getting paroled to.
SAC?
Yes.
I'm from San Antonio.
Go ahead on. And great school, and a Doctor, we call him Dr. B. I can't remember what his name is right now, but I wrote him and he answered the letter back. I asked him basically, I have this criminal record, but I want to be a chemical dependency counselor. If I come to school there, y'all gonna accept me? Is it even possible for me to do that? And Dr. Bergen sent me an email back and he said, we have many people in our program that have, criminal histories and, everybody's different. We have to look at individual cases, but, more than likely you will be eligible if you can pass the little test to get into school and everything. So I got out. I went to a halfway house in a transitional center in San Antonio, where you have to write the night before out on a piece of paper everywhere that you're going the next day.
And this is without a monitor?
Yeah, no monitor, because you have to write everything out, and it has to be approved by your counselor, and the next day, before they'll even let you go, they make sure everything is approved. So my counselor used to come work on a broom every day. She was a trip. So it was like, she wasn't approving nothing. But for some reason, she approved, because the problem was with going to SAC was, I don't know who I'm going to see at SAC. I'm going to the admissions office, or I'm going to the registrar's office. And on those forms, you have to have a name, a phone number. So she allowed me to go to SAC, go find somebody that could, like, let me use the phone to say, yeah, he's here right now. Long story short, I got into SAC, and hey, it was just like, it was a great opportunity for me, because you had teachers there that kind of saw something in me that I guess from years of reading. I mean, reading, that's all you doing to escape being in prison. I probably done read everything you can imagine. You probably too.
Yeah.
Newspapers, everything, law books, anything.
How old are you at this time?
47.
So this is when you get out of Beaumont.
Yes, the last time.
San Antonio.
Go to San Antonio, to the transit center.
Now, what is your, why San Antonio?
I caught my case in the Western District of Texas.
Right.
And so they generally say, okay, if you don't have a family or a parole plan somewhere else, we sending you back to the district that you got your case in. And I got my case in San Antonio. I ran from Houston to San Antonio.
What was the family at this time? What was your family?
I had been estranged from my family. My grandmother passed away the last time I was locked up.
Was your mother, was she still alive?
My mother's still alive. Lord, she waiting on me to send her some lottery tickets now.
She's still with us.
Oh,
Amen.
yes,
That's
indeed.
good.
Yes, in big way. Yes, but yeah, she's still around. But my sisters, and I just hadn't had no contact. I was estranged from my family for many.
But they knew where you were.
They knew I was in prison
They
or
knew you were
jail
alive.
somewhere.
Yeah, they knew
well,
you
they
were
probably thought there's no way for them to know, because it's not like I was writing letters and nothing. No, they didn't.
Why'd you stop writing them letters?
Well, I mean, it wasn't no point in me writing. They wasn't gonna write back. I mean,
Your mother didn't write you back?
My mama, no, she was never into one of these mamas, I'm gonna come down to the jail. Boy, you went down there, you just stay on down there, and till them people let you go. And she was one of these people, well, I'm glad he in there, because at least I know that he's not out here. And I tell people all the time, especially parents, that is a wrong way to look at this, because just because you in there don't mean you safe.
Yeah.
So there's many a person that went in jail with a traffic ticket and left out of there.
In a box.
Exactly. I hate to put it like that, but no, there's no 3 hots in a cot in the penitentiary or in jail neither. You know what I'm saying? So it might not be no cot in jail if you're on the floor somewhere.
Right.
So the last time I got out, I actually had people. I say it was people and God and people that just came in my path. It wasn't nothing that I did. It was just like I was at SAC around the right people. The English teacher was like, these young people, they kind of listen to what you're saying. They kind of like, they into what you're teaching them or whatever. They kind of look up to you. And it was hard for me to need them little old young, old dude, man. I just want to be an LCDC. Get me a good job.
But tell me what's required to be a LCDC.
Well, in the state of Texas, you have to take these 10 core classes, and it doesn't matter if you have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, or a PhD. You have to take these 10 core classes in the state of Texas in order to be eligible for a licensed chemical dependency intern certificate. And then
how long does it take the class? Like, is each class a whole semester?
It'll take you about 2 years. They have it now. They have some places, schools that can teach it in about 18 months. Yeah, so you have to. That's a long time. Yeah, you have to. And so I took those classes, and that took me almost 2 years. I didn't get my my associate degree because I got into an honors program at SAC, and that'll help me get into UT.
Right.
So I went to UT. I left, went to UT.
Which UT?
Austin.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there other UT?
San Antonio.
I'm just playing with you. I'm just playing.
A lot of
I'm
kids go
being
to
messy.
UTSA.
I understand.
A lot of people send their kids to UTSA now.
I was just being messy.
No, it's cool. I mean, you know, I'm U of H all the way, so I don't care.
All right.
Go
Hook 'em
Cougs.
horns then.
I don't care.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, and when I was there, we'd be let me see, fall of 1976, 30 to zip. Okay, football. Okay, all right. So, you know.
Way back.
That was.
I missed that
was for your
game,
time.
but exactly. But anyway, not that much before my time, but yeah, it might have been a little bit. But the point is that, you know, I had folks took an interest in me and getting into those particular honors classes helped me get into UT Austin. Now, when I got to UT Austin, I was just scared out of my mind.
Yeah, because that's a total culture
Yes,
shock.
and
Bunch of rich kids all over
I
Texas.
spent my whole adult life in the penitentiary.
You about
Right.
49 now?
I'm
50.
Yeah, 49. You know, I'm hitting 50. I'm
So
old.
how are you living off grants? I mean, how are you making it? How
Right.
Going to
So
school, paying for
it's
school?
another thing. I couldn't find a place to stay. I ended up going and living in a sober home in San Antonio.
Okay, that's cool.
Right. So the dude that was running the sober home, I worked at Goodwill when I first got out. And that's one thing about the Fed. You got a job because you can go to Goodwill. We got to hook up with Goodwill. Can't nobody that comes out of prison not work at Goodwill. So I'm working at Goodwill for 6 months. Within that 6 months' time, I got into a sober house. The guy who was the
Now,
manager.
this is at San Antonio or Austin?
In San Antonio, yes. I'm still in San Antonio. The guy that was running the sober house, the manager, ended up getting locked up for something. And so since I was in school to become an LCDC, and, you know, I've been paying my rent and, you know, just doing well in the sober home, the gentleman that owned the home asked me what I consider becoming the manager. And I was like, yeah, because anybody that knows anything about sober homes, if you the manager, that means you ain't got to pay rent.
You got to pay the rent.
You don't have to pay rent, so God is good, you know. You just, hey, I ain't got to pay no rent. And got into, people all the time say that.
Just throw the people out that don't follow the rules.
Yeah, which I did.
It's a sober house across where my office is on Alabama and Hutchins. It's a sober house across the street. So I keep up with what's going on over there. It's like 14 guys.
Yeah. So anyway, I got that job there, and then I was able, people say all the time, oh, you got a criminal history, you can't get financial aid. That is not true. I got financial aid. Everybody that get financial aid know the little bit that you got left over, that's what you live off of. So I put that little bit and the free rent got me all the way through school without really having to work a full-time job so I could concentrate on my studies, which allowed me to graduate top of my class in undergrad and get the commencement.
So that's at San Antonio or UT? I'm getting them mixed up. So then you work at Goodwill in San Antonio, go to SAC, and then when you go to Austin, you also work at Goodwill.
No, when I go to Austin, since I had already worked at a sober home in San Antonio.
Okay, you worked at the sober home.
You learn to start networking now. So now I'm in the sober home community.
Nice.
So all you have to do is say, who got a sober home in Austin? Such and such and such and such and such. And so when they send you down over there, and the person that owns the sober home in San Antonio calls a person that owns the sober home in Austin and says, I got a guy that's been managing for me. If anybody need a manager, let me know. Sure enough, they had a guy named Bob Davis. He's a friend of mine to this day. He had a sober home. He was looking for someone to manage it.
How many people were in that home?
About five. Okay. 5 people. Totally different sober home than the kind that I was in San Antonio.
Is it better?
This was more upper level, you know,
Yeah.
upper crust
Five
type
people's
of
not many.
sober home. Yeah, this was for rich boys. This is a rich boy in Austin sober home place. And so now I'm managing a sober home, kids rich, you know, people own car dealerships and stuff like that. So needless to say that, you know, I made quite an impression on some of those kids. One kid in particular I had to put out because he had some drug paraphernalia. His family owned a car dealership, and they were like, hey, man, you ever get because what ended up happening with him, I put him out, but he ended up coming back later and doing really well. And he said it was because you put me out that I decided to get it. And obviously, he had conveyed that to his parents in some way, form, or fashion, because as far as they was concerned, I couldn't do no wrong. So I bought my next car.
They weren't mad at you for putting their son
No, they was
out?
happy, and it was like, you ever need to buy a car? I mean, my sisters bought a car from their car dealership. I've utilized them, you know, later on, you know, because they were like, hey, man, you helped our son. Nobody else, you know, because he's a rich kid and he comes from a prominent family, most of those sober homes weren't going to kick him out.
Right.
Like, you got to go, bro. You know know what I'm
trying
saying?
to follow
What is
the
that?
rules, yeah.
I mean, yeah, because if I let him get away with it, then the mother guy's gonna try.
And then you're gonna get kicked out of your free rent.
Yeah, and that too. So anyway, I did that. I did my undergrad. Like I said, I had a great professor there named, I forgot this teacher's name. But one teacher, she helped me because I was like feeling this imposter syndrome at UT. I was just like, man, I'm in class with all these young kids and stuff.
Yeah.
And Dr. Roundtree, she's retired now. But she told me, she taught the social justice class, and she told me one day, she says, Reginald, you've earned the right to be here. She says, I've looked at all your records. You got great academics, and you're a good student. And so I was like, at the end, I kind of said, okay, if the professor, that helped me a lot. Then there on campus at UT, there was something called the Center for Students in Recovery. So it was a good safe space for me where I could go and at least had something in common with everybody else. Because I tried one of those fraternities, and when after the meeting, them guys got to jumping all up and down and stuff. I said, listen, I'm going to pay my dues, but I'm not going to be doing all of this jumping up and down and stuff. So the black frat thing didn't really work out for me, but the CSR did because it was people that were in recovery. And they are like really accepting people, We all in recovery, We all, we have the same lived experience, and so it was my first exposure to peer support. People working with other people with similar lived experiences to help them overcome challenges.
What was that called?
Peer support.
No, I know, but what was that called? Like the program?
Center for Students in Recovery, CSR.
And that's on multiple campuses.
At UT, they expanded that program to have all the UT campuses, and I have been trying very hard to bring the CSR wants to work with HBCUs that would like to have something like that on campus, and that has always been one of my goals, because if it would have been for CSR, I might not have graduated. That was a place I did all my study in there. They gave me the key for the place and let me come in there on the weekends when I was doing my sign language and having to film it and stuff, because you had to have a foreign language. And so I tell people all the time, as you probably can tell, I don't speak English that well, so I definitely don't want to learn how to speak no Spanish or French. So they said, well, we think we got something new this year. It's called Sign Language for Social Workers. And so
that's good.
I don't know. I learned just enough to get through that class, just like statistics. That's why I'm not a researcher. I'm a social worker, but I'm not a researcher. But
so that was your major, social work?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And then I went on. So I graduated. I got elected to do the commencement speech. And
where?
Yeah.
Which school?
School of Social Work. When we did our commencement.
And how do you get selected for that?
Everyone in your class votes.
The students or the teachers?
Students.
Okay.
Students. So the students vote. I mean,
How did they know you well enough? Do you like compete for it? Do you apply for it?
I was Reggie Smith, and so I made a big impression on that school. Mm-hmm. We did all kinds of new stuff because, I'm the only person that had justice involvement. So we brought people down from New York to have a social justice conference that they hadn't had in years, but because of Dr. Roundtree's belief in me, and so she let me set that up, and I had Glenn Martin come down from Just Leadership USA, and he gave a presentation, and we had some Q&A afterwards and everything like that. So we did that, and anybody that knows me, they know if I can't be in a space with people for a long period of time before it's like, hey, I'm kind of gregarious, and so folks, they know me. And so, I became a standout person. I was definitely like one of the only black people there that was in the social work school, one of the only males because social work is predominantly female.
Right.
So I was a black male that was older, that had been to penitentiary. And so they were calling me in classes, hey, can you come to the class and tell us? They were just, I'm in everybody's class and stuff. Yeah. So, and
how did that affect what you're doing today as far as like some of the teaching, some of the training? Was that like one of your first experiences in going to teach? Because you were mentoring before while you were in prison and out.
Mm-hmm. I think what happened was, yeah, I did like being able to go into the class and tell people my story and how that relates to stuff that we're doing in social work, whatever they were particularly studying that day, whether it be like outreach to the community or something like that. So yeah, I seen that I was kind of good at that, you know, and it was something it just worked for me. It fit because all my friends were like, man, what the hell you doing? You going to school for social? If you gonna go back to college, you gonna be a doctor or a lawyer. And I'm gonna say, well, hold up, bro. You know, I do have this little criminal history, and it's kind of hard to become a doctor or a lawyer, even though I do know a guy who has become a lawyer since that time with criminal background. But at the time I was coming through school, that was one of the reasons that a lot of folks didn't go into social work because they didn't think they could get a license in it. But I just got good advice all the way. No, you can do it. You can do it instead of you can't. And a lot of folks, they go and people tell them they can't, and that just shuts them down. But again, God and people, you can do it. You can do it. Opportunity after opportunity. And I was like in the opportunity seizing season of my life. Any opportunity come, I'm going to seize it. I'm going to seize it. I'm going to seize it. Try to make the most out of it. You do enough of that, you're going to look back and you put together some accomplishments. Just being consistent and, just every day being focused on goals and driven. I mean, I'm sure you know, that's how you get things done. And so, yeah, I got into graduate school. And the funny thing about that is...
Now, where'd you go to graduate school?
To UT.
Okay.
For my graduate degree in social work. And there's a little thing called a GRE that you got to take. And I just really ain't big on tests. Those kind of tests, And so, they told me in the admissions office, they were like, Reggie, we really want you to be in our graduate school. He said, but you got to make this score. This is the score that you got to make. If you make anything lower than this,
we can't get you in.
Man, I went and took that GRE. I made the exact score
that you needed.
I said, well, God, this must be God. Yeah, I mean, when I seen the score, I was like, because I told God, I went in there, hey, God, I need this score right here.
Yeah.
That's the score he gave me. And so you start seeing stuff like that happen again and again over your life.
Like little miracles.
Yeah. Miracles. And so that brings me to what I'm doing today, because I understand that it was for God and people in happenstance that I got here. People coming out of prison can't depend on happenstance.
Right.
And so I said, well, let me take all the stuff that I learned and try to put it into a program. And so I came up with SWAG, strength, wellness, advocacy, and goals. Because we all have some strengths already. We all working with some kind. Some people play basketball good. Some people are good at drawing. Even in prison, you see people with extreme talent. So that's a strength, right? And then we have stuff, I don't call it weaknesses, but we have things that we that we can do better.
What's W for?
That's wellness.
Wellness, okay.
Because we have to, after we identify our strengths and the things that we need to improve on, we also have to understand we have to be well. And wellness can be mental, physical, or spiritual wellness. Right. So, if you have a mental health condition, just time for, it's an opportunity for somebody to identify that they have an issue and to try to address it.
We have 10 minutes, so let's keep going about the program. I want to get to what you're doing now, but you're telling us with the swag, so keep going in that direction.
Right. So swag started in graduate school, and then when I started a nonprofit in Austin called Building Promise USA, we started doing swag in the jails right before COVID. All right.
That's jails in Austin?
In Austin, yeah, Travis County. We were doing swag in Travis County. Then we had the whole pandemic thing and everything, and I ended up moving back down here to Houston because of my mother. And so started working at TSU. So I got Tommy Dorsett, a friend of mine that I've known for many years. He said, I had this program that I've been doing for many years called Penitence Grace. And that worked with adult guys that was in reentry. And he said that I've seen all of these different reentry programs. There's a lot of reentry programs for adults, but they're not very many for youth.
Right.
And so he said he wanted to change the name of the organization. This Credible Messenger movement began a few years back. And so they brought that down to Houston. Now, interesting enough about me, one of the jobs that I had after I graduated from graduate school, I worked at Health and Human Services in Austin for the peer unit. And so this peer support, I've seen peer support evolve in the state of Texas over the last 5 to 10 years. And credible messenger mentoring is basically the same thing that peer support is. And so what I've tried to do is take some of the principles of credible messenger mentoring and integrate them into the more broader and more robust peer support framework. And so peer support is recognized by the state of Texas. You can get certifications for it. You can go work at different local mental health authorities or, different jobs you can get with that credential. What's important about that is that a lot of folks can't get jobs because of their criminal history. With peer support, because of your history, you can get a job. So because you've had this mental health issue in the past and overcome it, you can get a job. Because you've had this substance abuse in the past and been able to overcome it, you can get a job. Or you've been to jail, prison, and you've overcome it, you can get a job. So now your past is not being used against you. It's actually a prerequisite for a whole new career for you. And so I've been trying to incorporate this peer support into our program here because ultimately we want the young people that's in our program, 14 to 24, we want them to become credible messengers. Right now, I have a bunch of older gentlemen, and they're great, but ideally, I would like to see the young folks come through and one or two of them, okay, I want to be a credible messenger.
Let's take this moment to say credible messengers. Tell them about that program through the Juvenile Probation Department. Talk about what that program is.
Right. So credible messengers, and you correct me if I'm wrong. It's a intervention that was developed like in D.C. or New York. Basically, you take people that are from the community that have justice involvement, that have a rep, and you give them training so that they can work with youth that have that similar background. You can see where they're going because you've been there. And so what you want to do is kind of model to them, this is how you can live out here, and you can still hustle, but we don't call it hustling, we call it entrepreneurship. So we just show them, we've been exactly where you've been, and the kids know it because they know their brothers and uncles, and they know Ted, Russell over here, So yeah, they know that these are guys that are really from this neighborhood and have a little respect in the neighborhood, and now they're giving back in a way that, in the past they wouldn't allow.
The good thing about it too is that you can support the families as well. So the credible messenger can also work with usually the mother, no lie, but usually the mother or the guardian to be able to advise them. So I always say that's what my mother didn't have. My mother didn't have somebody to say, hey, I went through this before. She had to go through it by herself, as hundreds of other mothers back then. Right. So that's a good thing about credible.
So they have a support system for the mothers.
Right. Well, we do that.
Support system for the mothers, for the fathers, for
because you're reaching out to the kids.
Is.
So you reaching out to the kids. You also want to know about the family as well.
You have to. That's the environment. So we can work with the kid all day long, but it goes back to an environment where there's no lights, no heat. It makes it hard for all the gains that we possibly made with them that day to really settle in. And they need to have a stable home life. So we do work we have a couple of credible messengers that we have about 40 kids. We have some volunteer credible messengers, and then we have a one person in our office that works primarily with the family and engaging the family. So we want to find out from the family, like, is there any resources that we can give you to help you? If it's job related, housing related, or whatever, school related, or what have you, because the family needs services and support just as much as the child does. And so you hear that today all about wraparound services and stuff, but as long as you can provide support services to the youth and to the family, that's getting you a long way to trying to make some positive change in the whole family's life.
Well, it's a great program. If someone is interested in that, like say someone's child is getting out of prison after 15, 18 years, went in as a juvenile, they're coming out, how does a mom contact a credible messenger? What do they do? I mean, do they just Google it, credible messengers in Houston, or how do they find that support?
Well, actually, if you've been in adult prison for 5 or 10 years, we want you to come out and be a credible messenger.
But what if the mother wants to help their child just getting out?
Oh yeah, well then she can call us, and we generally work with 14 to 24 years old. So if they fall into that age range, yeah, we'll assign them. They'll come in. We'll assign them or match them up with a credible messenger. We'll get some background on them to find out what do you want to do. So basically, they'll take the swag, and the swag. The last thing in swag is the prep. Is everything that you learn in strengths, wellness, advocacy, and goal gets transferred over to your PREP, your personal reentry plan. So this is a self-directed plan. We have probation saying you need to do this, this, and this. Okay, that's what you need to comply with. But this is your own plan. This is what you want to do. And so we can look at their plan. Oh, I want to become a mechanic. Okay, well, the first thing we need to do is see if we can get you a GED.
Right.
And we start trying to help them reach the goals that they want to reach. At the same time, we want to help them comply with whatever conditions that they have of their probation so they can stay in the community and continue to get support, and then start giving back, because it's not all about getting support.
Right.
So and that's another thing. We really want those youth to volunteer. A lot of them come to us. They have community service hours. So, we always looking for places, positive places for them to go and do their community service. But just know that the volunteerism is a big piece of that.
Okay, I hope that answers my questions about the mother. I understand about the kid, but I'm just saying, if I'm the mother and I don't know where to go,
yes, you like I said, contact us, and if
it's gonna be me and my kid.
Right. If we can provide services to you after we learn about the person, we'll provide those services. Or if we think that there's a better resource, then we'll refer them. So you call us a credible messenger, we're not going to never turn nobody down because of age or money or anything like that. Yeah, we're always going to be a point where we can refer folks out, but we basically work with 14 to 24-year-olds.
All right, my director's saying we have 2 minutes. Oh, now 1 minute, but I want to say this.
Yes.
Tell us what your day job is.
So during the day, I have the good fortune of working at the Earl Call Institute, which is a nonprofit that's a part of the Thurgood Marshall School of Law at Texas Southern. I'm the policy and community liaison. Earl Call does a lot of great stuff for people in the community when it comes to housing, when it comes to keeping people's records cleared, or even when it comes to actual innocence cases. So I would really, if anyone has any type of situation like that, I would encourage them to call the Earl Call Institute and see if we can help you in some way.
Thank you so much for telling us your wonderful story. And I want to get you in here, Damion, to say something at the end. Damion, I know you've got a lot going on. Tell me what you're doing these days. Why am I still encouraging you and proud of you?
Well, tomorrow I am the keynote speaker at the 29th Community Reentry Network program. So I'll be speaking to the graduates and the community, recommended by Ms. Vivian King. And I am thankful for that, because not only who's going to be on the panel, I guess, up there, but because the call came to you and you saw me, but mainly because I graduated that program in 2010. So I go from a graduate to the speaker with the mayor and people like that.
Yep, and I'm very proud of you.
Awesome.
I will be introducing him tomorrow.
Yes.
As a keynote speaker. I'm very proud of him. When I recommended that he become the speaker, I had no idea that he'd graduated from that program. He's probably told me, but I probably forgot.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of things to try to remember.
Right.
So I'm excited about that. So that's what we'll be doing tomorrow.
Right.
So this has been a great conversation. I mean, I really have never known much about credible messengers. I've heard that term, but I didn't really understand it. So I think that for the people who've watched this show, I think this has been a great experience, a great education, and I think that we can all learn from this. I really appreciate, Damion, that you bringing Reggie on today, and I appreciate you sharing your story. That's not always easy, but it is impactful and helpful to the community. Thank you all for watching Truth and Justice with Vivian King. Good night.